ended up, coming out to Los Angeles and becoming an actor. And part of my story, you've seen the film Scarface. So, Manolo, the young actor next to Pacino, Stephen Bauer, his real last name is Echevarria. So the last family that took me in high school was his family. So we're like brothers. So I grew up in his family for about. He's did Ray Donovan for about 5 years. The Showtime show with Leaf Schreiber. Yeah, and then he did Breaking Bad. He did a really interesting character on Breaking Bad. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. So that's kind of been my journey. I'm a father. I started late, so I have one son at 26 who graduated from Harvard and is getting ready to go to law school. No, and I am. I'm very proud of that, especially coming from where I came from. So, yeah. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything that. Okay. Hmm. Initially with Blood and Blood Out, I remember when I first read the script, I kind of got angry because it was about gang members and whatever, and I almost put it aside. And my ex-wife, who's a writer, picked up the script and read it and said, "This is an amazing story. She said, this is one of the best scripts I've ever read." And then I went back and I reread it again. And so then it kind of, once I read the whole story, and what a lot of people don't know is that the script was written by Jimmy Santiago Baca, who is an award-winning Chicano poet who taught himself to read and write in New Mexico in the state penitentiary system. And so he's in the film. He's El Mero Mero's cellmate with a little pencil thin mustache. And and the reason that we were allowed to film in San Quentin, because when it says San Quentin prison, we're in San Quentin. So we're in the prison population and we're not protected or guarded. So everybody you see around us, the warden is the real warden of San Quentin at the time. So we were basically, everybody, once you figure out who the actors are in the movie, everybody else around us are real convicts doing time. So, and we had to sign no hostage policies, meaning that if they took us hostage, we weren't going to give them the warden or somebody else. So it basically changed my whole perspective about incarceration, because as I walked around San Quentin, I went there, but for the grace of God, it could have been me. And I often say we need to get to those young men and women before they get there. And by the way, I just wanted to let you know I'm fully vaccinated, so you can, if you feel comfortable. Yeah. So there was a point where as a Latino, because I was born in Cuba, so I'm an immigrant to this country, and there's so many stories that we can tell, but the story of Blood and Blood Out was a very important story, and that's why it still has legs 28 years later, and actually it's just been nominated for the National Film Registry. So at some point, I mean, if it gets voted in, we would go in with films like Gone with the Wind and other films. So we'll see what happens with that. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Okay. So the great question is, and the movie is Onda supposed to be the Mexican mafia. We stayed away from that completely because, I mean, there were two different films going on at the same time. As you know, there was American Me, and Edward James Olmos, he decided that he was going to do Emme, and it got him in trouble, and 6 people were killed off his film because they didn't like the way they were portrayed. So we were like, no, we're La Onda. We're like completely different. Everybody around us were Emme. We're the real guys. Yeah. So we're surrounded by the real guys. Billy Bob Thornton was actually, while we were in San Quentin, Billy Bob Thornton was starting to write Sling Blade, the film that kind of really launched him. So that was one of his first projects. Oh no, yeah, we were working every day, but what would happen is, as you can see, I have no tattoos, and Magic's covered in tattoos. So our makeup trailer was right in the middle of the prison yard in San Quentin. So I would go in there, and if I was shirtless in a scene, I would have 3 hours of tattoos put on me. But we were are getting tattoos. The white actors, the black actors, and the Chicano actors. And the minute we would step out into the prison yard, we could no longer talk to each other, because Billy Bob would go with, and Tom Tolles would go with the Aryan Brotherhood, the real guys. Bonafide and Delroy Lindo will go with the Black Guerrilla Family, and we were with Emma, and also Nuestra Familia is another big, like in California, that's a big. So and we could not talk to each other for the rest of the day. And and by the way, I was Magic all day long. No one knew my real name. I would stay in character because, Magic was a guy you didn't mess with, and I figured that was great protection for me. So, yeah. But in the prison, about 5 weeks. 5 weeks, and because in the prison system, like normally for instance, I have a 12 o'clock call time at PM. You might have an 8 a.m., so you come at 8 a.m. In San Quentin, we all had the same call time. I might not film till the afternoon, but I had to get there with everybody else at 8 a.m., and we would all leave together. And so we were there 12, like I say, to 16 hours a day, every day for 5 weeks. We were locked up. The only thing we were doing was going back to sleep in a hotel, and Taylor Hackford, the director, made sure that we weren't in a fancy hotel. We were just in a like a just common basic room, because San Quentin was built for 2,500 inmates originally. When we were there was 5,500 inmates, so it was intense, and like I say, I think it changed a lot of us. And everybody that worked on the film, but especially those, I think it was 8 of us inside, eight to 9 actors inside. It changed the way we look at things. So, well, one, because I do a lot of speaking on ending violence. I know, because I was bred in violence, that violence is a learned behavior. We're not born bad or violent. I got a child. This is who I was as a kid, but I was, through what my experiences at home. And then I took it out to the street, and so if we can stop the violence, and we can invest in these kids, because what my high school did was, I got the free music and drama and sports programs and all things that gave me a different outlet for what I was feeling, and because I was a good athlete and I played football, I had this healthy outlet for my rage, which got me out of the gangs. Now, the difference in my gang time and today's gang world is that we didn't have guns, so nobody died, and so it wasn't blood in, blood out there. When I wanted to leave the gang, they didn't want me to leave, and I just said, well, here I am, if you got a problem with it. And right, 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 right. Right. Well, I think one of the things that I've been as a speaker for like the last 20 years on that particular issue on is part of it is we as men, we can help to redefine our manhood for our young boys and men. It's like, what does it really mean to be a man? And so one, my belief is, one, we don't put our hands on women, and there's different ways to approach things, and you want them to know that anger is a human emotion, and it's okay to get angry. Now rage is a different component, because rage will take you to a different place. So you have to find outlets for that. And that again, that's why, whatever it is that they could do to maybe, and also just to take a moment, like we call, we, with our young kids, we say, take a time out. But you know what, we as adults need them too. Sometimes, you just have to breathe and say, okay, you can just teach your kids a different way to do things, and also to articulate their pain. And especially with our boys, it's still common for us to tell our boys, don't be a girl, don't cry, don't, and it's like, no, yeah, boys cry, we have emotions, we feel pain, but we tell our men to stuff it. And so, well, what's it going to come out? It's going to come out in a lot of times in violence, or it's going to come out in an explosion of words. And I can tell you that words damage me more sometimes than the physical violence that was being done. So great question. Yeah. Well, I've done a lot of films. I would say that the greatest immersion into a role was, of course, Blood and Blood Out and Magic. But but I've done some that I did a film with Eddie Murphy where it was a comedy where we were in Washington D.C. and I had been going to Washington D.C. as as a spokesperson, distinguished gentleman, right? And and then there was a real crazy film. It was on HBO. I mean, you probably didn't see it, but as far as like a really wild experience, so there's an HBO film called The Chain, and so I'm chained to Gary Busey for the whole film. So if you know who Gary Busey is, you sign him on like a Celebrity Apprentice or any of those. So I had this wild I was chained to for like 4 weeks in the Philippines in the jungles. So in the heat, and Gary's like, oh, let's go, come on. Yeah. So he's kind of a crazy guy, but yeah, I've had a lot of different experiences, and I think each one, the beauty of especially film acting is that the film ends and you go to a different character and you create. And so like with Magic, as an example, I'm not Chicano, and so I had to really immerse myself not only in the Chicano culture, but also, my character is very much, you can see it on my tattoos that I have a lot of Aztec, symbolism on my body. So, yeah, right. Right. So I had to research that, and I worked with Jimmy, the writer. And by the way, I was offered the role of Carlos, that, the America's Cup of Coffee, cocaine is America's Cup of Coffee, that character. And then they called me in the next day because Magic in the original script was about this big, but you would see him with Onda, but he only said like one or two words in the whole script, in the first one. And they called me in the next day and they said, this Carlos is your role if you want it, but we want to talk to you about Magic because we think this is an important role and we're going to punch it up and we want you to play this role. So I had to take a leap of faith to say yes to play Magic. So yeah. So yes. Was it easy? There were parts of it that already lived in me. Was it easy to become Magic, and the other parts I had to sort of go like really sink into. But I can tell you that by the time I left San Quentin, it took me about a month to shake Magic, because I got of all the inhumanity that I saw and just the depth of how dark I had to get to play that guy. It kind of changed me, and I had to really almost cleanse myself as after the film. But it was probably the hardest role to go into and to come out of. Like I had to like lighten up, because I'm kind of a light, funny guy in real life, but Magic was a very dark character. So yeah, you had a question. How long did I do that? So I did. The question was about Hawkman for the Justice League, but the character's name is Harotalak, and so that was we shot 3 episodes of that, and the way they do animation, which those that know animation, those that don't, they bring us in first, and we do all the voices, and then like 6 months later, you'll see yourself and you go, oh wow, I'm blonde and blue eyed, or it's like you never know. So I mean, I knew what Hawkman would, but I'll tell you an inside story about Justice League and about the Hawk, because Hawk Girl on the show, the woman who voices her Hawk Girl is Latina. She's Cuban, like I am. So what they did was when they hired everybody from the planet that comes down, we're all Latinos. The whole group of us. So be not for us to have Spanish accents, but because Latinos have a rhythm in how they speak. So everybody from the planet had a certain, because we were all Latinos, behind the microphone. So yeah. So cool. Yeah. Great question. It's like when you do the way that Warner Brothers, because I also did a bunch of Batman Beyonds too, and so they usually bring us all in, and we do the whole script, and then sometimes they'll, like you'll be there for one character, but they'll say, oh, there's a fight scene here. Can you do a couple of so you add some some different sound effects and stuff along the way. but yeah, and so it's kind of reminds me of like the old, I'm not old enough for that. I'm old, but not old enough for the old like radio days when everybody would do they would be lined up doing an entire play or an entire show. Like War of the Worlds was originally a radio play, so yeah, so we're for them we're all in the room. Sometimes they might bring you in individually, but for the way that Justice League and Batman Beyond and all that, we're all in the room at the same time. So we had different, like I worked with like a guy from Rocky Horror Picture Show, Tim. Yeah, Tim. Yeah, whatever. Tim Curry. Yeah, Tim Curry, and like a whole bunch of and oh, by the way, and so when we were doing the Justice League, the Hawk characters, so Hector Elizondo was my lieutenant, who's a very well known actor and voice. He's the Chevron voice. If you've heard Chevron commercials, that's Hector Elizondo, and Elizabeth Pena. We had like several other like kind of well known Latinos. Yeah, yeah. So I saw the yeah. Yeah. So yeah, cool. Well, I mean, I've worked with a lot. I did a film that won the New York Film Critics Audience Award. That's Roger Ebert called one of his favorite holiday films. It's called What's Cooking, and it's a film that was directed by Gorinda Chadha, who directed Bend It Like Beckham, and that film. But it's four ethnic families in L.A. and what happens on a during Thanksgiving, and how anytime you get a family together, there's always some crisis going on somewhere. So there's there's the Latino family, the Black family, the Asian family, and then the Jewish family. And so I was the father of the Latino family, but it's told from the matriarch's point of view. So I was working with Joan Chen, and Mercedes Rule was my wife. Alfre Woodard, who I just loved, was the head of the African American family, and then the Jewish family had Juliana Margulies and Kyra Sedgwick, and but the funny story from that film was Alfre Woodard. Well, I've always been a big fan of hers, and I walk into the makeup trailer because we're going to get her makeup done, and she's there sitting down, and she turns to say hello to me, and I'm about to like say, "Oh my God, you're my favorite actor, one of my favorite actresses." I get whatever. Yeah, I got yeah. And she just turned around to me and she goes, "Oh my God," she goes, "I love your work," she says to me. Or she goes, I've seen a lot of your things. You're wonderful, whatever. And I was trying to come up with like a brilliant response to her, and I just went, I love the work. That was my first. And then at the end of the day, we worked in one scene together, and at the end of the day, and that's the only scene I was going to work with her on. And at the end of the day, I'm walking back to my trailer, and she's in her trailer, and I can see her, and she's getting her things together to leave, and she's looking down at me, and I never got to tell her what I felt, like about her work. So I looked up at her and I went, "I love you," and that's all that came out. I could nothing else came out, and she just looked at me. She goes, "That's nice." She just, and I never really got to tell her what. Right, it did not go smoothly. Yeah, yeah, it did not go smoothly. But I've worked with a lot of different actresses and along the way, and like I say, most of my experiences, almost all of my experiences, have been really wonderful with actors. I remember when I got to we were doing the big table read for the Mask of Zorro, and there's Sir Anthony Hopkins sitting, at the head of the table, and we're all like we're all surrounded, and after we did the table reading, I'm going like I was trying to talk to him, and I was trying to say like, "Sir," and he says, "Please call me Tony." He just wanted to be Tony, and that's who. Yeah, that's who he is. But this is a funny acting story, because we were waiting for Anthony Hopkins to speak, to say his first lines, because he's the old Zorro before Antonio is going to become the new Zorro, and we're waiting for him to speak, and when it's finally his time for the reading, he's got his glasses down to here, and he goes, "Rah, rah, rah." I couldn't understand a word he said, and I go, "Oh my God, he's going to play Zorro." And then 2 days later, Antonio and I are playing brothers, Banderas, And so we're in makeup and hair, and they're putting clothes on us, and we come back outside, and we're in a studio in Mexico City called Azteca Studios, a very famous studio in Mexico City. And we come out, and there's all they actually have day laborers right there inside the studio that will go get anything you need, or they're all sitting over here, and suddenly Antonio and I are outside, and we see the door open to a trailer, and all we can see is like black boots with spurs and the black pants, and it's Anthony Hopkins. He's standing at the top of the stairs in his Zorro outfit, standing. He's got the sword in his hand, and all the Mexican day laborers look up and go, Zorro, and he goes, yes, Zorro, and suddenly he put all the toys and all the clothes on, and he was Zorro, and he was like. So it was amazing to watch this legendary actor and go through the process. But once he got the like, and that's part of us, it's because part of it is being a child. It's like, you have to have that childlike innocence to believe that you're a doctor, or to believe that you're Zorro or magic or whatever. And then, so yeah, it was really fun. Yeah. So this is an interesting about the Mask of Zorro that a lot of you probably don't know. So my character in Zorro is Joaquin Murrieta, and there's a real Joaquin Murrieta in Mexican history, and it was basically part of the history of Joaquin was that the Mexicans were finding a lot of the gold in California, and then the Anglos were stealing the gold away, and then Joaquin and his family they like raped and murdered his wife, and awful things. And so they went out to seek vengeance and to get the gold back. So we would go out at night, and they would take the campfire ash and cover their faces. So that was like the original mask. And so he was the kind of the for the writer who wrote Zorro was the image. And in order to he was such an outlaw that they had like posters out for him everywhere. So that's in the film Mask of Zorro. So what they did was, in order to prove that they had killed him, they cut his head off and put it in a jar. And there's posters that from that period. It says, "Come see the head of Joaquin Murrieta." So my head ends up in a jar in the movie. So it's kind of based a little bit on the real story of Joaquin Murrieta. So I'm actually Joaquin Murrieta. That's just the name, but that's part of the story there. So yeah. Okay, so the Miklo. So the beauty of Hollywood. So there's a couple scenes in the movie. There's the shower scene where Miklo asked me to walk him in. So they just so happened that there was a young man who looked just like Miklo, who had lost his leg in a motorcycle accident. So that's the double from the back for that. Now the movie magic, and I'm going to give you a little inside movie magic for the scene. You remember when Miklo first comes back to prison without his leg, and he comes to my cell because we're going to be cellies, and he takes his leg off, and I go, oh God, I'm looking at his leg, and it's awful. So and you see the the stub of his leg. Well, what's happening is they cut a hole in the mattress, so his real leg is in the mattress, and then the prosthetic is hanging off, and they so it looks real, but his leg is behind him, and so. Yeah. And I play the I don't know if you saw the movie Amistad. So I'm the captain of the Amistad. So yeah, I get killed in the opening scenes of the movie, and it's a real violent death where they Jaimin Hansu sticks a sword through me and whatever. You see my feet going crazy and legs and whatever. So they had me in a slant board in the ship, going down the ship, and I put on a different shirt, the same shirt I was wearing, but the shirt was now connected to legs, and there was puppeteers underneath me playing with my legs. So he had to make sure that the sword went perfectly in, because if it didn't, it would hit me. So I was literally like this, but from the scene, it looks like I'm flat, and you see my legs kicking, and I'm spurting blood, and yeah. So yeah. So yeah, it was. Yeah, well, my mom would always say, in Spanish, she go, "Ay, hijo, te van a matar otra vez," because I play so many bad guys that they always kill me. So my mom was like, it's like, "They're gonna kill you." Going, yeah. Sometimes I die later in the film, sometimes I die early, but I'm gonna die. Yeah. So yeah. So cool. coming.